in Phoenix, in an interview with ABC News, the president admitted lives will be lost during the reopening of our country currently underway. He said workers wishing to return to work, quote, should have no problem getting tested. We should point out that's certainly not the truth that citizens and workers are finding across this country. He compared the death toll as it stands right now with filling up Yankee Stadium with death, as he put it. About the economy, he said, it is what it is, and quickly added, quote, even the Democrats aren't blaming me for that. When asked about why he diminished the threat of the coronavirus early on, he said again today, quote, I want to be a cheerleader for this country. Back in the real world tonight, the death toll here in the U.S. stands at 70,972. The number of confirmed cases now well over 1.2 million. But we quickly add, as we always do, only about 2% of our population has been tested at all. And tonight, a new whistleblower complaint from the government's top vaccine official paints a damning portrait of the administration's response to this pandemic. Dr. Rick Bright alleges he was reassigned last month for refusing to embrace that anti-malaria drug the president repeatedly pitched as a possible treatment. In his written complaint, Bright says he, quote, opposed the broad use of chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine as lacking scientific merit, even though the administration promoted it as a panacea and demanded that New York and New Jersey be flooded with these drugs. He also, quote, felt an urgent and compelling need to inform the American public that there was insufficient scientific data to support the use of these drugs for COVID-19 patients. There's also this on the issue of personal protective equipment and medical supplies. Quote, Dr. Bright was alarmed about the scarcity of critical resources and supplies, including N95 masks, swabs, syringes, and began clashing with Health and Human Services leaders as he pressed for them to take appropriate action to address these shortages. The complaint also notes, quote, Dr. Bright acted with urgency to begin to address this pandemic, but encountered resistance from HHS leadership, including Secretary Azar, who appeared intent on downplaying this catastrophic threat. During a conference call this afternoon, Bright described his experience.
Time after time, I was pressured to ignore or dismiss expert and scientific recommendations, and instead to award lucrative contracts based on political connections. In other words, I was pressured to let politics and cronyism drive decisions over the opinions of the best scientists we have in government. We are in an extraordinarily difficult global crisis, and the worst might still be ahead of us. Americans need to have all the facts. They need to know the truth about this pandemic. They need to be able to trust that their government and the information that they hear from politicians is based on scientific merit.
Dr. Bright is asking for his old job back and a special counsel investigation. He's also scheduled to testify before a House committee next Thursday, the 14th. Today's other big pandemic news concerns the White House Coronavirus Task Force. While in Arizona today, the president essentially confirmed the White House is in the process of demanding the task force at a time when coronavirus cases are just now ramping up in some parts of our country.
Vice President Pence said there are discussions underway about winding down the task force. Is that a good idea during a pandemic?
Well, I think we're looking at phase 2, and we're looking at other phases. Mike Pence and the task force have done a great job, but we're now looking at a little bit of a different form, and that form is safety and opening, and we'll have a different group probably set up for that.
Are you saying mission accomplished?
No, not at all. The mission accomplished is when it's over.
Earlier, the vice president, who, don't forget, runs the task force, said the White House is looking at Memorial Day as a date for closing out the task force. This is happening, of course, as more states open up, as infection rates continue going up, and as new models warn the situation could get much worse as we head into the summer and fall.
With the doctors saying that there might be a recurrence of coronavirus in the fall, can you just explain why is now the time to wind down that task force?
Well, because we can't keep our country closed for the next 5 years. I'm not saying anything is perfect. And yes, will some people be affected? Yes. Will some people be affected badly? Yes. But we have to get our country open, and we have to get it open soon.
As we mentioned, the president was in Arizona on his first trip outside the Washington area in almost 2 months. He flew there to tour a Honeywell factory making N95 masks for the government. Trump did not wear a mask to tour the mask factory, and peer pressure perhaps got the better of those in his circle who also opted to go without masks, though in close contact with people nonetheless. In the "they can't make this up" category, here was the music blaring during the president's visit to one workstation.
This is the material that traps the particulates.
For those scoring at home, that was indeed live and let die. Trump, as you saw, did wear goggles, and before leaving, he was interviewed by ABC News.
How many deaths and how much suffering are you willing to accept to get back where you want to be? Do you see it that way? Do you believe that's the reality we're facing, that lives will be lost to reopen the country?
It's possible there will be some, because you won't be locked into an apartment or a house or whatever it is.
For any American worker who's nervous about going back, if they want to get tested to see if they've been exposed to the virus, they can have access to both the antibody tests.
They should have no problem.
And
they should have no problem. And as good as this is, we're even getting better. We came up, don't forget, the cupboard was bare.
What did you do when you became president to restock those cupboards that you say were bare?
Well, I'll be honest, I have a lot of things going on. We had a lot of people that refused to allow the country to be successful. They wasted a lot of time on Russia. That turned out to be a total hoax. Then they did Ukraine, and that was a total hoax. Then they impeached the President of the United States for absolutely no reason.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.